Hello, everyone. Welcome to Engaged Citizens of Columbia County. I am your host, Sherry Ryan, and today I am joined with Greg Pettit, who is the candidate for the Port Commissioner position number 3. And welcome, Greg.
Well, thank you, Sheree, for having me. I'm looking forward to this.
Yes, oh my goodness. Thank you for taking the time and being transparent and putting yourself out there to share with our community. I know everyone appreciates it, so thank you so much.
My pleasure.
So we're just going to get right to it. And can you tell us just a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So my wife and I have lived in Columbia County for about 20 years. We're very active in the community. Both of us. My wife is chair of the Friends of the Library, president of the Friends of the Library in St. Helens, on the Helens Library Board. Participates in the Dolly Parton Library. He's also on the St. Helens Parks and Trails Commission. I'm very proud of her, as you can tell. And so
Awesome.
she's done a lot of work
As
there.
you should be, as you should be.
And I myself try to do what I can to build the community and make it a better place to live. I have been past president, and I'm on the board of the Scappoose Bay Watershed Council. I was a volunteer at the Community Action Team Warming Center. They're no longer using volunteers for that, but I did that for at least 6 years. I volunteered to do maintenance of city parks in St. Helens. I'm a driver at the Senior Center for the Meals and Wheels program in St. Helens. So that's kind of some of the volunteer work I do. My professional career, I worked for state government for 38 years through a variety of different positions. I worked my way up to be a division administrator. I had nearly 100 people that reported under me, multi-million-dollar budgets every year. One of the things that was the most, and I served on numerous committees. I represented the state of Oregon on numerous national and state policy setting committees. For example, I was on the National Governors Association Task Force on Non-Point Source Pollution. I represented my agency, DEQ, on the Oregon's Ocean Policy Advisory Committee as an ex officio member. I was on the Department of Interior's National Water Quality Monitoring Council, representing the states of Oregon, Washington, Idaho, and Alaska. I was on the Lower Columbia Restoration Program Regional Management Committee, and then on the Scientific Advisory Committee. So that's just a small sample of the many things I've done like that. So I've had a lot of experience in working in groups where we're setting policies. But the most rewarding part of my career, I think, was at one point I was our agency's groundwater quality coordinator. And this started off by I did a statewide survey of groundwater quality and found a lot of private wells were contaminated with nitrates, arsenic, and pesticides in the Willamette Valley and in agricultural areas in Eastern Oregon. Oh, wow. And we realized we didn't have adequate statutory authority to deal with the problem at that time. So I was the lead person in the agency for establishing Oregon Groundwater Protection Act, Groundwater Quality Protection Act. And I worked for about 4 or 5 years in that process, mainly with farmers and ranchers and those kinds of people, the Farm Bureau, Oregonians for Food and Shelter, along with environmental groups, public health organizations, in developing what was basically a completely non-regulatory program that relied upon voluntary mechanisms. But it was that working over time with these folks who originally thought people from DEQ were kind of like the enemy, to build trust over time and come to a common agreement. And when we took that to the Oregon legislature, it had the support of the Oregon Farm Bureau. It had the support of Oregonians for Food and Shelter. All the various and the environmental groups all were supporting it, and it went right through. So that was a very rewarding aspect. And I think that's the skill set I developed in terms of listening to people, going through a lot of technical information, understanding what people's concerns are, and then evaluating how serious those concerns are, how relevant based upon the facts that are available, help us make good decisions.
Wow. Yeah. You have a very fabulous resume there, Greg, of involvement and also of volunteer work. And I just want to say, thank you so much for what you've done in Columbia County, with like the
the one thing I've learned, there's a lot of people in Columbia County that do a lot of good volunteer work in this county. Yes, a lot of the service organizations do great jobs.
I agree. It's fabulous. And we are a small community. Even our county, it's a very small county
yes.
compared to, large metro areas. And it is a very precious and, prized commodity to have a small community. So thank you for all that you do. And um, so you're running for the Port of Columbia County. And can you please tell us, what is your why? Why do you want to be on that board? And why do you want to be involved and or on the Port Commission?
So the Port of Columbia County has a vision statement, and the
Okay.
vision is to be a leading, innovative port focused on economic development, which will benefit Columbia County's future generations. And
Mm,
that is a vision I completely embrace. And I
yeah.
think I have the skills and the background to help the port, working with all the other port commissioners, to help make that become a reality for Columbia County.
Mhm.
I really, a lot of my work is basically focused on making Columbia County, both my volunteer work and my application for the port, is trying to make Columbia County a great place to live.
Yeah. Yeah. That being the end goal, right? That being
Mm-hmm.
the why, the why you do it. Well, can you just kind of go over like what does a port commissioner do? What is your
Sure.
understanding of that? And,
Yeah, the primary responsibilities of the Port Commission is to approve all major expenditures and to set long and short term plans or strategies for the port. So this is really important. So right now, for example, the Port Commission is working on nearly 50 capital outlay projects for the upcoming biennium, and they total almost $10 million in capital outlay. So not just the money, but they really don't have the staff to adequately address all those capital outlay issues. So the Port Commission has to prioritize these capital outlay to make sure that the port staff spends their resources, both in terms of people power and in terms of financial resources, that are going to be most effective in ultimately accomplishing that mission and bringing in jobs and a strong economy for Columbia County. We really want to build a sustainable, diversified economy. So right now, the Port of Columbia County owns 10 properties in Columbia County,
Mhm.
totaling 2,400 acres. On those 10 properties, there are 45 industries and businesses located. Those 45 businesses and industries employ 476 people with a $29 million per year payroll and a
Mhm.
$66 million per year GDP. And that's not including the secondary jobs. It's like another 342 secondary jobs that are spawned off those original jobs.
Okay.
The vast majority of those jobs and businesses are located in the industrial parks at the airport, at the Milton Industrial Park, at the McNulty Industrial Park. So they're basically in the Scappoose, St. Helens area.
Okay.
And that's where the real economic benefit from the port is right now.
Yeah.
And I know we're going to talk about next energy in the future, and there's been a long history of things
Mhm.
associated with Port Westward, which gets a lot of attention. But if you
Mhm.
actually look at where the jobs are and where the money coming into the county is in terms of payroll, it's in the St. Helens area in these industrial properties. They have, let's see,
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, at least off the top of my head, I can think of basically industrial properties where people can come and locate various kind of light industry to medium industry and diversified businesses.
Mhm. Okay. Okay, so what are a few of your, if you were elected into this position, what are some of your short-term goals and what are some of your long-term goals in this
So what
position?
I'd like to see the commission do is help the port become more proactive in
Mm,
identifying the kinds of businesses we like to attract to Columbia County,
yeah.
and then figuring out why those businesses aren't locating here, and then reaching out to those businesses. So I spent a lot of time talking to uh, Sean and Amy, who are at the port director and deputy director, with Paul Vogel with the Columbia County Economic Development Team, trying to understand, what the problems are in terms of businesses wanting to locate. We have right now at the airport and at the McNulty Industrial Park, we've got between those two, we've got over 80 acres of shovel ready. I mean, it's all ready to go. Somebody could just locate there and start building right away. Everything's
Okay.
been planned. It's got utilities and everything. So,
Hmm.
and there's lots more that with a little bit more work could be ready to develop. So the question is, and traditionally the port has been kind of reactive. in terms of
Mhm.
reacting to the people that want to come in here and do something, and then
Yeah.
spending a lot of time and resources reacting to various proposals as a part of being more proactive in terms of us deciding and then doing a better job of marketing. So, for example, when I ask,
Mhm.
what are the things keeping people from locating in Columbia County? A big one is they think, well, we're not on I-5. So, but we need to let people know what Scappoose is 30 minutes from I-5.
Yeah.
Platskanight is like 20, 25 minutes from I-5. So it's no, we're really no farther in a commute time from I-5 than the Hillsborough, Washington County areas. So we
Yeah.
need to take those things. And we also need to do a better job, I think, of talking about the the wonderful things we have about living in Columbia County. Is
Yeah.
we have the river, which is our biggest asset, tremendous asset.
Mhm.
And that's, by
Mhm.
the way, that's another one of my goals I'd like to see is I'd like to see us develop more of a recreational economy associated with the Columbia River. I mean, if we could get like maybe at Columbia City, for example, a
Uh-huh.
hotel and a new marina
Yeah.
down by the river that really so many people drive through Columbia County on their way to the coast, but there's not that many places where they can stop and really enjoy the river. I mean, the Scappoose
Yeah.
Bay Marina is very popular during the summertime. You get over 2,000 people a day, and that's one of the recreational properties the port has, and it's used by a lot of people. Right
Mhm.
now, there's literally hundreds of guides that are operating out of that, and they bring a lot of economy, a lot of income into the county, not through
Yeah.
just their own work, but through all the clients and stuff they bring in. But that could be expanded if we developed another marina further downriver on the
Yeah.
port property. So those are some of the ideas. I think we need to kind of keep an open mind and kind of quit thinking about these traditional things that come to us, but be more creative in terms of what can we do to bring in businesses that are really going to help them? Because we all have the same goal, but
Yeah.
but we can perhaps explore some alternatives. And those things might help us make, because one of my goals is to make sure we not only build the economy, but we maintain the livability of our community.
Yeah. Yeah. The livability and just the culture,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Well, yeah, that's true. I mean, a lot of people like the fact that we only have 53,000 people in Columbia County, and we have
Yeah.
that kind of rural and small. I love the small town atmosphere here in
Yeah.
Columbia County,
Yeah.
and so we want to make sure that we plan ahead. So we plan carefully,
Yeah.
so that we preserve those things that we want to preserve.
For sure, for sure. I mean, that's why we live here,
That's right.
Otherwise we would live in Portland
That's right.
or, so
But we
I,
do want we do want jobs. I mean, we want jobs
yeah,
so that
yeah,
all of our kids don't have to leave the county to get a decent job. So we can have both.
yeah. We want them to stay around,
Yeah.
I guess. So then, what are your thoughts on the next renewables? And I ask this to, all the candidates because it's been a hot topic. We know this is a hot topic because it is a big deal. It's a big deal to, the people locally in Clatskanie and to our community. And so I just, people ask, Sherry, please ask the candidates this. What are their thoughts? What are their plans, really, what it comes down
So
to? What are their
as far
plans?
as the port commission goes, Next Energy is pretty much a done deal,
Okay.
and
Yep.
because they have got the lease from the port, 100-acre lease from which they're going to build the facility. So the process right now, their environmental impact statement is at the Corps of Engineers, and they have to go through that environmental impact statement and prove that. And then they're going to need a couple of more permits from DEQ, which they haven't got yet. Those have been sent back. But as far as the port goes, I mean, the port has already weighed in on where they're at with that. Um,
Mhm.
I think a lot of the things you're talking about sound great. I think a lot
Yeah.
of the people that are concerned about Next Energy have got legitimate issues.
Yeah.
It's not unlike Northwest Portland. It is in a seismically very unstable area. It is an area where
Yeah.
if you had an earthquake, it would liquefy. And so having a large bunch of tanks there in that area is
Mhm.
perhaps not the best geologically. That's a legitimate concern.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
the agricultural community, the best agricultural land soil in Columbia County is right around Port Westward there. They grow the mint and they grow the blueberries and other things. And that Clatskanie agricultural community is really kind of building a vibrant community where they have the farmers market. They bring artists in, they have music, they have artists of all kinds in there displaying stuff. It's really a kind of a neat scene that they're starting
Yeah.
to
It
develop down
is.
there. So we want to make sure to preserve that as well. So
Yeah.
I think we can address what the concerns are, and then we might have to make sure that we employ adequate mitigation, make sure that those things don't become problems. People's It could be either construction in terms of seismic construction and stability, and also in terms of air quality, which I'm sure I trust DEQ on that, but it's going to be. So I basically trust the existing regulatory process to do their job, and make sure that things are adequate to protect the environment. But I also know that there are concerns that go beyond that aren't addressed.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
what do I think of it? Oh, I think I didn't get to my main point. My main point is, will it actually be built? I've got here a list of projects for Port Westward over the last 20 years. And I won't read them all, but there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 of them on the list. Only one of them was actually built, the ethanol plant, and that went bankrupt right away. And then Global Partners has been shipping first ethanol, and now they're shipping renewable biodiesel out of the port. Those things have been going on for quite some time. The real moneymaker for the county and for the port is the PGE facility at Port Westward, where they have gas generators, and that's been there for quite a while. They've added a couple more over the years. There's about 70 people that work there, but that actually has got nothing to do with the port being there. They're there because the gas lines come in, bringing the natural gas across the river there at that point of Washington. Okay. So they're the biggest employer at the port. But I keep wanting to remind people, if you just look at the facts, the real economic drivers in the Port of Columbia County are all these 45 industries that are basically at the airport and in the St. Helens area.
Okay. Thank you for educating us on all this. Like, I appreciate like all of your insight to this, and that you're explaining things. I feel like a lot of the candidates that I've spoken to, this is helpful because, not everybody can research and have that bandwidth, and not everyone has the insight that some of these candidates have, because this is what is important to you, right? And so you sharing it out to us is educating us, and I appreciate it. So thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I ask candidates during election, what are going to be your top 3 priorities? You kind of shared some of your goals and different things. Like, what are the things that if I were to come to you later and say, Greg, these are kind of some things that you really touched on during your campaign. I just want to see how they're going.
Well, I kind of told you what my priority is there in terms of trying to be more proactive in bringing in business in. I would like to see the port. I think they've actually come a long way in the last few years with the port commissioners we have now, but I still think there can be areas for transparency improvement and soliciting a broader representation and a broader representation of citizen interest in developing their policies. Mm-hmm. I think they need to do a better job of vetting proposals and doing a risk analysis in terms of how much this is going to cost us. What is the risk that this is going to actually be made or be completed and bring the jobs? And how much of an investment of the port resources? If there's one thing I would criticize the port over time is they put a huge amount of resources into projects that have never been built, have never brought the jobs in. And I think they must bear a little bit of responsibility in being kind of like so excited to hear about something that sounds promising that they don't ask the tough questions about that project to say, who are the people behind this? What is their track record? What is the real economics of this thing? Is this purely a venture capitalist speculation thing? Or is this something where there's a real market for this product and that kind of a thing? So I think that's just a matter of us all becoming a little bit wiser before we invest a huge amount of our resources in something that ends up failing. Do a better job up front. I don't want to hammer that point too hard. I think the staff they got there now is pretty darn good, and they're doing a good job, and I think they're moving in the right direction.
Yeah, wonderful. What are your thoughts on the possible transportation expansion on the port, on our rivers and such?
Well, the rivers, of course, the Columbia River, the major transportation on the Columbia River is between the ocean overseas and Longview to a certain extent in Portland. What we do have at port, right now, I believe it's about 1 ship a month, or I know it's at least 1 unit train of biodiesel a month that gets loaded onto a ship at Port Westward and shipped out. And I'm not sure how many trains it takes to fill up a ship. They might have to do some storage there with the storage facilities. But that's basically the only major shipping that's done. On the lower Columbia River locally, we have the gravel industry at Santosh, and that's kind of a local tugging operation. So they harvest a lot of, we have a lot of aggregate mining in Columbia County, and a lot of it from Santosh gets shipped up and down the river to various locations, either sand or gravel, all that kind of stuff comes out. So those are barges. Um, there could be smaller operations at Columbia City that make, there is a small port at the Columbia City industrial facility that could take advantage of that. That wouldn't be ships. That would be tugboats and barges could use that
Yeah.
facility. I'm not
Yeah.
aware of anything going on there right now.
Okay. Okay. Well, do you have anything else that you'd like to cover or talk about or say?
Well, I do want to listen to people. I mean, I think that's how we get to good solutions is you get everybody in the room and you listen to what everybody has to say and you have an open, honest discussion with everybody. And we all need to respect everybody's point of view and
Yeah.
understand how they come to that point of view. Uh, and be open to changing our own minds and
Yeah.
open to new information. So I think that process is just part of the public policy process that I believe in. And I think that would apply to being a port commissioner as any other position of that type.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I really appreciate you coming and sharing, yourself today and with our community and putting this out. I appreciate your insight and thank you for running and thank you for, spending time with me.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I enjoyed talking to you.
Yes, you too, Greg. And
All
I'll
right.
post your info so people can reach out to you and, ask questions or be in touch with you. And really appreciate you coming and hope to talk to you again soon.
Thanks so much.
Okay, thanks, Greg. Bye bye.
Bye.